Hey guys, so since last week, OpenAI has something like 12 days of shipping, and we are on day 4. They already announced a new O1 model, Pro mode for $200. They also announced release of Sora, and they also did some stuff around fine-tuning the models. This is day 4, and today is about Canvas, their collaborative writing thing inside of ChatGPT. That now, if we're gonna go to ChatGPT, it now hides here. And maybe we can say like create a poem. So when it's on, it's gonna write it in a separate block. You can open it and you can edit it when it finishes. So they announced updates to it. Before it was only for Plus users. And yeah, here I wrote a blog post about the announcement because I was like testing it, seeing what's new. And there are 3 things that they announced. That Canvas is now available for everyone. Before it was only for Plus users. And they added new support for Python. So you can now write Python there. It's highlighted. And you can execute Python. It can help you debug Python. Or so they claimed. And it also now is possible to integrate them into custom GPTs. So people making their own custom GPTs now can integrate them with this Canvas mode. And for me, the most interesting part was this Python thingy. And I started testing it, and honestly, I'm a bit confused. I even made a table. It's just the thing is that ChatGPT for a while already has what is called ChatGPT Code Interpreter. They announced it in something like April 23, and it's out for everyone since summer of 23, so for longer than a year. And what Code Interpreter is, it's a tool where, let me show you maybe, like use Code Interpreter to draw a chart for me. It's interesting they're hiding it. Kinda. It's not here. Well, just imagine some data. I want to see how it works. Oops, typo. But here how it works for longer than a year. It writes Python. It then sends code it wrote and files you upload to the chat. I will show you a little bit later with upload of files, but it sends files and code to server. It starts a server instance sandbox on like OpenAI or maybe Microsoft servers, sends code and files there, executes it and sends results back. And chat sees the results. So if you asked for analysis, it will, like, you can iterate with it on the analysis. It sees the errors and tries to fix them. It sees the answers. It may see problems with the answers, write more code, send more code, execute more code. It can iterate with you. It's assistant. So this is what ChatGPT already has. So what's new and different about this new Python execution environment? Let's take a look. I wanted to show you how that looks. Let's go. Let's start a new chat. Let's enable Canvas and say something like create small Python hello world app for me. Okay, so here the way it worked was that it wrote some Python in this kind of block and sent that code to run on the server and got from the server this image chart. Now what happens here is that it wrote the code in this Canvas block. It's highlighted. We can edit it. This is new. This is different. You cannot edit it in Code Interpreter. You can tell it what you want to change, but otherwise it writes it itself. So this is what's different about Canvas. You co-write with it. It's a co-worker, while this is just worker, which sometimes you actually would prefer. Okay, let's go back here. So it wrote this, and now you can run it up here. Boom. And it ran. You can see hello world in console. Now what is also different, let's ask it this way. Make it generate a random number as part of hello world. And it rewrites. We can see how it rewrites. It also highlights the syntax, so it's kind of like friendly for people who want to learn to code or want to edit the code. Let's run it again. And we can see that the number is 48 now, and it's a random number between 1 and 100 here, a random integer number. And we can ask now ChatGPT, what was the number generated just now? And it says that number generated cannot be known because the code runs dynamically and generates a random number each time it's executed. To see the number, you will need to run the script. Let me know if you need to help. So it doesn't see the result. Okay, can you throw an error? They claimed it helps you to debug things. So let's ask it to throw an error and see what happens then. Okay, let's run it. And it's actually did. Oh, if it's, let's say that if it's less than 50. So it didn't throw the error because like it throws the error if number is less than 0, while it cannot be less than 1. Let's try again. Okay, now it did got an error. And the way the Canvas with Python works is that when the error happens, it does kind of react. It says that, hey, the error was this, and you can fix it. So I wonder what it's gonna do. So yeah, in case of errors, it does send them to chat, at least something. There's quite a difference in that sense from what Code Interpreter does. So let's just compare. Let's start new one. Create script that returns hello world plus random number and run it in Code Interpreter. Let's try this. So it creates hello world, it runs it, it sends it to server, we are waiting for it. In that sense, this is faster, right? It runs fast. Like if we run it, we can see that we can run it and it's like super fast. Okay, so here we see that it returned hello world 83, and we see the chat sees that it returned hello world 83. Why is this important? Because if you're doing data analysis, then you want chat to see results of the analysis and iterate on them. With this, you will need to probably copy things like this or something. So I don't know, it feels kind of more manual. And this is where I kind of get to one of the first thoughts that I had. Who is it for? Because my first thought was that it's for data analysts who are playing with small Python scripts, doing some kind of analysis. But if it cannot put back results of analysis into chat to work with ChatGPT on, and you need to copy and paste, then this is worse workflow than using Code Interpreter, especially if we want to use some kind of data. And one thing I did was actually give it a file and see if it can, actually maybe before that, let's take a look at one thing though. We will get to uploading files and how they compare. I wanted before to discuss what this is and how it actually is different in more ways than what I shared so far. They also share that it runs in the browser. Let's ask it for a new canvas. So Python, for your information, usually cannot run in the browser. Make a new canvas, also hello world, but this time also collect all information about environment Python is running in and print it as well. Thing is that they said that it's fast because it runs in the browser, there is no server. So it's different. It's different than Code Interpreter in that regard. And one of the first things I did, I was curious. Okay, it's run in the browser, it runs in WebAssembly, it runs fast. This is what they shared. But what does it use? And I did this. I asked it like output everything you can get from it about environment it runs in. Let's take a look. And we can see that it runs in CPython, mscripton, which is a way how to compile things to run in a browser that were not initially made for the browser. So it's mscripton version 3.1. There is no information about processor. It's wasm32 as far as machine goes. Current directory is home pyodite, and executable is somewhere here. This is what it got out. The most interesting part here is this pyodite. Let's take a look what that is. I kind of know, but let's search. So what is pyodite? Pyodite is a Python distribution for browser and Node.js based on WebAssembly. So it's a Python compiled into a file that browser can execute. Basically, what they did was that they used this pyodite, load it into the ChatGPT, and then send Python stuff to it so it runs there. But it has limitations. And let me show you what kind of limitations. So now I want to show you about files. So here is a folder with files. It's some numbers about my YouTube channel. And here, let's give it to ChatGPT here, and let's give it to, let's start a new one, add Canvas and add it here. Here and say, here is CSV with some numbers about my YouTube channel. Can you take a look and draw a chart for it, as well as calculate median number and draw it to plus output it. So here is a prompt, and yeah, use Canvas and Python. So here I'm asking this from Canvas, and you can see I gave it some kind of not exactly big CSV file. And we can see what kind of code it writes. It says like, okay, load data from mount data total CSV, print the head, so print the headers, do some kind of stuff, print the median. It also does something with plot. Let's run it. And we have an error. If this happened with code interpreter, it would try to fix it automatically. Here we need to click on it and see. So the error is caused because the file path does not exist in the environment where the code is running. Double check the file location and ensure blah blah. So it didn't work because it doesn't have access to a file that I uploaded to chat. So it cannot be used to analyze files. This way it doesn't have access to them. Yeah, let's copy here the prompt and ask ChatGPT use code interpreter. And Python, yeah. Now let's ask code interpreter. Same file, almost the same prompt. And we can see that it's reading the file again from the similar location. It did read an output to chat how the content of file looks like. So there is date, views. So the first thing, it's interesting, code interpreter is honestly marvelous. It thought and said, okay, first I want to output couple of the examples from the file to understand the structure, and then I will write the code. Now it wrote the code, and it calculated the median. It returned the median, which is 759, and it drew a chart showing the median and the chart of my views, YouTube channel views over time. One prompt, one iteration just works. This fails. So it's not for data analysis. Let's try one more. I am also in an article comparing it to Claude. And before, Claude could not do it with artifacts. Let's again take a look at the file, put it here, and give it the same prompt, approximately. Just a little bit adjusted for, just remove how to do it. Let's see what Claude will do. So before, Claude could not use files in code. Now they do have a feature that is very similar to Code Interpreter. I'm just not sure. I think it does run in browser. Not sure. So first what they did is that they run the code, and we can see that it's JavaScript and it used Windows FS to read the file. It did analysis, and now it's doing the other thing, which is artifact. So this is inline analysis, and this is interactive artifact. So it wrote some code, and I don't see anything. Median views is 0, no views. And yeah, this is my experience also from the article. I'm also showing that in article I had the same experience in the morning. It's consistent. This is how well at this task Claude works. Consistently. Can you make it work? Yes, you will need to iterate. Let's try. I see only 0 views. Can you show some errors of why I do not see a chart? So it does something else, some kind of debug data. But I'm not seeing, it's been misunderstood, it seems. It went and tried to do things inside of its analysis thingy. Parse, so it's parsing something. It's again loading the file. And I have no idea what it's doing. Remember how fast ChatGPT was at this task? I am not sure if I will cut out time or not. I know some people like Claude. I kind of still prefer ChatGPT depending on the task. But yeah. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go further. Anyways, this is what I wanted to show you more or less. And there are more things that I wanted to show you that are kind of interesting. So I'm not sure when this is gonna finish, but in the article, I think I will link to article and just tell you the results a little bit. There are screenshots to show. So what is interesting about this mode, this one, it runs in a browser. So I got curious. If it's running in the browser, like Code Interpreter cannot request files. So I will show you. It's interesting. So image with text. So here is an image with text. Let's go. Let's take a link. Let's go and create a new Canvas environment and ask it, can you load image from and show it using plot library? Use Python and Canvas. So we have a code, we have a link to the image, we can run it, and we can see that it can access the image. Now we can ask it something like, can you use some library to extract text from this image? So now we're asking it to use code to extract text from the image. It runs it, like writes some code. It will use PyTesseract. It's pretty well known and well working library. Let's run it, and we get an error that Mscripten does not support processes, and the library of PyTesseract uses processes, so this library cannot be used. Now let's try to ask the same thing from Claude. Not Claude, from ChatGPT with Code Interpreter. Here is a link to image. Can you load it into Code Interpreter and run analysis to extract text? So preferred. It cannot load images directly. Okay. Can you write Python code that uses network request to get it? no, not Canvas, not Canvas. Do it with code interpreter. Okay, so now it's trying to download the image. It's writing the code and it runs it. Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, so this one errored out. And what did it say? It seems that the code interpreter environment doesn't have internet access. So yes, code interpreter is isolated. It cannot do network request, it cannot install anything, and it cannot download anything, including images, text, or files. The only way to get files in is by dropping them into the chat. We still can go and take the image, copy it. Let's go here and paste it into the chat and say, oh, here it is. Can you extract text from it using Python and code interpreter? So now we uploaded the image. We can see that the image now, it thinks that it's here. It uses PyTesseract and it got the text. Make text stand out from backgrounds. Make text stand out from backgrounds. There is some weird syntax in how it extracted. Let's see what it says. It may include some formatting artifacts. Let me know if you need further refinement or adjustment. So this is how you can work with files with code interpreter. While this can't, because it cannot load libraries. While this loaded the same PyTesseract and worked. So they all have limitations. ChatGPT has limitations with code interpreter, that it doesn't have access to internet, but otherwise it's probably the best tool for most jobs, honestly. Maybe the only other problem is that when you leave the chat, then the instance on the server dies, so when we return, we cannot reuse it and we cannot share it with others. They will need to kind of restart their work. This is shareable, restartable, reusable, you can edit, but it has a lot of limitations. It's also faster. But yeah, it cannot really work with files yet. Maybe they will be improving it to match the code interpreter. But this early release, like, does it have any advantages over the code interpreter? In my view, no. Maybe only one, there is syntax highlighting and you can edit, but otherwise it feels okay, it's faster and runs in your browser and it's resumable and shareable. But for actual work, code interpreter is better. Let's also test what Claude can do in similar environment. So we can share, again, try with the link first. Let's create a new chat. Here is link to image. Create artifact that shows the image and also uses OCR to extract text from it. So we are asking something similar and it will say, I apologize, but I'm not able to open or access URLs. Just make HTML with image whose src is. Again, I need to iterate. I need to convince it that it can or cannot do something, and it still says, like, I apologize, I cannot. Just do it. I know it kind of can do it. Okay. Oh, what? I need to respectfully decline, and then goes and does something. What did it do? Okay. I don't know. Allow me to change URL with input. Let's see if we can get it to work at least in some way. Again, sometimes for certain types of things you will need to iterate and convince it, and you need to know how to ask. Depends on the task. So we can give it an image, but it fails to load it because, let's open developer tools, and it says refuse to load the image because it violates following content security policy directive. So Claude is set up in a way where it cannot request external URLs unless they are whitelisted, and this is not whitelisted. So you could say that it has some limited internet access, but it's limited. This is why I've put here network requests, Canvas limited, interpreter cannot do it, and Claude limited just differently. So, okay, but can we give it the image in chat? Ok, I gave you the image. Can you add it to artifact and do analysis on it to get the text? Okay. Let's see what's gonna happen if we upload. I actually don't think I tried it exactly in this way. It's still a placeholder. Okay, so this is not what we tried to test. It used its own image analysis to say the text is there, but the image is not here. Okay, create new artifact. Allow user to paste an image and then use some library to extract text from pasted image. So it again apologizes. It likes to apologize. So it doesn't have direct. What does it do? Does it load the library for me? Okay. Can you load some library from CDN to do analysis? Let's try to paste first. Okay, I've pasted. And it says, oh, it says itself, like, yeah. Let's give it, like, there is Tesseract.js, which is similar to PyTesseract. That's what the code interpreter used, but on the Python side. There is a JavaScript alternative that should work in the browser. Let's see. I remember that back in the day when artifacts just came out and I was testing them, and yeah, it worked back then. Now it doesn't. We will see. Maybe it does. When I was doing the blog post and testing, it didn't. Okay, I need to drop the image. Okay, let's save the image. Let's load the image. And we get uncaught network error, failed to execute import scripts, trying to import Tesseract from ZDNJS deliver. This is what I got also in the morning. So what this tells me is that code like ChatGPT with Canvas and Python execution cannot use this kind of libraries because environment doesn't allow it. There are issues in Claude in trying to also load this complex kind of libraries and use them, while inside of Code Interpreter it does work, as we can see here. And this basically is what I wanted to show in that sense, which brings me to a question where I'm actually confused. What is, and I will share the link to a blog post if you want to see more of this kind of examples. There is a little bit more there that I did, but there you can see that I did similar things. I just recreated them in video for you. But conclusions for me are that for real work, the code interpreter that's by now is more than 1 year old, is better tool. But it has its own limitation. It doesn't have network access. It's harder to reuse and share. But like for data analysis, I do use it for data analysis from time to time. Claude Artifacts, for me, they work worse for this kind of thing. But if you want some kind of shareable interactive result, they are better. But there are, I think today there are even better tools. Like I like WebSim, there are like Bolt, Replit. There are tools with which you can create shareable interactive artifacts that work better than what Claude does now. As we saw, it couldn't load the library and do network requests. But in my view, ChatGPT Canvas with Python execution at the moment is worse than both of them. It cannot do interactive stuff. It it can do network requests, but it doesn't help it because it cannot actually use complex libraries. Environment in which Python runs here is limited. It's fast, it's local, but it's limited. So it feels to me that only real use case is learning Python with ChatGPT on small scripts, limited ones. If you are a professional, you're using some kind of libraries, it will be very hard to recreate working environment here. Doesn't have access to files, doesn't have access to libraries. So who is it for? This is a question I asked at the start of the article, and after this exploration I still am wondering, because there are better tools for this, one of which is already in ChatGPT and it's Code Interpreter. This is what I wanted to share with you today. Maybe you have an answer. Leave it in comments. And do you like this kind of content? Subscribe and see you next time.